This is Akash Vani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Asian Development Bank meeting and highlights of the Finance Minister's visit to South Korea. The participants are Shankar Iyer, economic analyst, and Rajesh Lek, Akash Vani correspondent.
The Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, led the Indian delegation to attend the 56th Annual General Meeting of the Board of Governors of Asian Development Bank, ADB, in the Republic of Korea. Mr. Shankar, what are the focus areas of the 56th Annual General Meeting of the Board of Directors of ADB?
So one has to look at this in a perspective of what's happening globally. So if you look at the globe, the left side of the globe is discussing recession, high inflation, interest rates, and the right side of the globe, which is basically Asia, is discussing growth and challenges to growth. So the fact is that we are now in a phase where the center of gravity of economic growth has shifted to the Indian Ocean region. And so India is now in that pole position as the fifth largest economy, and we will be soon, within this year or a little later, the fourth largest economy in the world. And that counts a lot. So Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's visit enables us to showcase our rise, enables her to showcase India's potential as one large economy, which is currently the fastest growing large economy. It is also the largest, fastest growing free market economy, and that matters a lot in the current global picture. The Asian Development Bank's annual meetings are an occasion for us to sort of present our points of view on geopolitics, on climate change, on financing modes, because we are still a developing economy, even though in terms of size we are number 4 and 5, but as a developing economy, we are representing the South Bloc, basically the developing economies' concerns, to the developed and advanced economies. And for instance, Finance Minister Sitharaman raised the issue of climate finance, innovative financing for climate change, how to tackle climate change. And this is going to be a big challenge, not only for India, but a large number of countries in this area, which are small islands or which are coastal in character, which have imminent issues in terms of global warming. So I think she has done a splendid job in terms of how she has raised the issue of climate change, and she has flagged that question even in Washington earlier. She spoke about at the Fund Bank meeting, she spoke about the need for advanced economies to put their money where their mouth is.
The Asian Development Bank envisions a prosperous, inclusive, resilient and sustainable Asia and the Pacific, while sustaining its efforts to eradicate extreme poverty in the region. In light of this objective, how has the interactions of the Finance Minister been with the global economists, governors and finance ministers of the ADB member countries?
So there are two parts to this story. One is the reconfiguration of the supply chain post the pandemic and what we call the China Plus One strategy that is being adopted by a large number of countries. Now, there is also, one must recognize, a move in the West, in the advanced economies in Europe, in the United States, particularly, of a new industrial policy, which is, they are calling it nearshoring, onshoring, friendshoring. And there is the other aspect that investments in China will slow down because of the demographic reasons, because of their own domestic concerns. And a large number of multinational corporations are looking for resilience in their supply chain. So the story of supply chain has moved from, we used to have for almost 2 or 3 decades, a supply chain concept that was just-in-time supply chain, which meant that you kept an inventory that was enough to keep production going. That has changed to just-in-case supply chain. And in post-pandemic era, the world has recognized that what they thought was a global supply chain was actually a Chinese supply chain. And that is being replaced now. if you look at the number of investments that have come into India from Samsung, from Apple, iPhone manufacturing, iMac manufacturing in India, it's also the higher level of capacity creation in India is reflected in also the exports that we are doing now. And some of these exports are part of the global value chain in which Korea plays a major role in as one of the large trading nations. So we are now part of the solution to a resilient global supply chain. And that gives potential to GDP growth, to trade, to a better current account deficit. The other aspect to that is poverty alleviation, where actually the big story is India's success in creating a digital physical infrastructure. The world knows about Aadhaar. I have written about Aadhaar, how it was formed and how it has been expanded. And this, on the base of this identity platform, created the Trinity, which is basically inclusive accounts, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile. So JAM Trinity, we call it. And this is something that the whole world has lauded. This has been repeatedly mentioned at the Fund Bank meetings and also at the Asian Development Bank meeting. So we are in a position, there are at least 7 or 8 countries which have shown an interest in creating a similar identity platform. The success of National Payments Corporation and UPI is known the world over now. We are actually in an enviable position in terms of the digital infrastructure. There's also physical infrastructure being created. Both of these contribute singularly and cumulatively towards poverty reduction. And in some senses, India offers a model of inclusive democratic growth.
The finance minister in a tweet has said that India's systematic long-term reforms facilitated by digital public infrastructure enabled timely conditional cash transfers during the pandemic. And she very nicely put it across that the other countries were busy writing checks, whereas we transferred money directly into bank accounts. Now, this is a big impetus for us to carry on the financial inclusion through digital means going forward.
Yes, and not only transfer of money, which if you look at the digital physical infrastructure, we had Aadhaar, then we had CoWIN, which enabled us to successfully vaccinate over 2 billion doses. We have a system where we can transfer welfare. We have a system which enables ease of doing business for whether you want to open a bank account or acquire a telecom connection. It enables us to access government services. There is a pyramid that has been built, which is called the India Stack, and that pyramid has enabled, and she put it across very well in the sense that she said that the world saw how even advanced countries struggled to transfer money during the pandemic and how India was doing it seamlessly within seconds at a low cost. And the beauty of this is the efficiency that India has achieved, creating a low-cost paradigm for the world to sort of look at. And which is why I mentioned that there are several countries which are interested in this model on how we are. So if each of these infrastructure playbooks is created as a public good, Aadhaar is managed by the government, it's a public good, it's not a private enterprise. NPCI is Section 6 company, which is a not-for-profit organization. UPI is resting on that. So what she mentioned is only the tip of the iceberg. Now the next part comes where India will be able to use flows of payments that is there on anybody's accounts as a means to assess their credit worthiness and make available credit to a lot of small entrepreneurs, home office businesses, and individual traders to sort of access the bank credit system. And this also will help the micro enterprise. So the next part of it is the account aggregator system that we are trying out. And then we have options of creating the online net for digital commerce. And that will integrate producers and the consumers on one single platform. And so the digital physical infrastructure play is a very big play for India.
The function of the Asian Development Bank, Mr. Iyer, is to provide assistance to its developing member countries, the private sector and the public-private partnerships through grants, loans, technical assistance and equity investments to promote development. And there had been bilateral engagements in which our finance minister was actively engaged and was part of with countries and international organizations. So what could be on the anvil now?
One of the big challenges for this part of the world is create instruments of finance, innovative finance for development. What this part of the world, particularly Asia and Southeast Asia, do not lack is ability or competency. What is necessary is to create a pipeline of finance. And the Asian Development Bank has the opportunity and needs to sort of beef up its capacity to fund innovative financing. For instance, climate change, shifting from fossil fuel to renewables. This requires both technological assistance and advice, consultancy, and also finance. Now, technology is being harvested in India. It is being innovated. For instance, if we look back, the Prime Minister's hydrogen initiatives are there to see. The Finance Minister in her budget also created the impulses for promoting solar and wind power. So what is the opportunity for Asian Development Bank is to create an innovative mechanism for funding these through startups, through direct grants. So there will be some of this climate change initiative will have to cover the public goods domain, which is provided by the government where financing will be required. And this is important because that will create the impulse for poverty alleviation. For instance, how can you promote the idea, how can you digitalize education? Now, Asian Development Bank has a role to play in that, and it has in the past done that. Finance Minister very rightly highlighted the need for creating a task force group to think about how these innovative financing mechanisms can be designed to deliver maximum benefit to countries in the region.
And Mr. Iyer, during the visit, the Finance Minister also participated in annual meeting focal events like the Governor's Business and also as a panelist in the ADB's Governor's Seminar on policies to support Asia's rebound. What are the key highlights of these meetings?
Resilience is the key word there. The world recognizes that one part, as I mentioned, that the advanced economies are struggling to contain inflation and are uncertain about growth. The world itself is going through a technological transition, and then there is the aspect of geopolitics. So how does the Asian Development Bank play a role? How do the countries in this region come together to sort of create a resilient economy for their own peoples? That is the challenge that has been discussed. And I think some of the offline bilaterals have been important. A meeting with the Finance Minister of Japan, the Finance Minister of Korea, all these are both in terms of geopolitical and trade aspects are very key meetings. And almost all the meetings, the willingness of these countries and the recognition that India has the potential to be a solution provider for this part of the world has been highlighted. I think the points that the Finance Minister has made, mentioned, sort of give us a glide path on what could be done. And one must keep in mind the fact that the G20 presidencies with India and G20, a large part of it deals with economics, trade, commerce, and geopolitics. And the Finance Minister has sort of highlighted some of the concerns in these meetings and tried to sort of bring some amount of collaborative thinking on the issues that need to be resolved.
Thank you so much, Mr. Iyer, for being with Akashvani.
You are listening to a discussion on Asian Development Bank meeting and highlights of Finance Minister's visit to South Korea. The participants were Shankar Iyer, economic analyst, and Rajesh Lek, Akashvani correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official.